Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better, and today we have a guest whose multifaceted career and passion for personal branding will leave you inspired and motivated. Our guest today is a true Renaissance man in the world of business and personal development. He's a businessman, author, creator, podcast host, private investor, and of course, a speaker. He's best known for his groundbreaking work in personal branding and is the founder of Mashman Ventures, a leading public relations firm that helps individuals and businesses enhance their public image and influence. In addition to his work at Actionable Ventures, he is an active investor through his business, Actionable Properties and Mashman Investments. He is also the author of the insightful book, Personal Branding, a manifesto on fame and influence, which has garnered attention for its profound insights and into building a powerful personal brand. His expertise just doesn't stop there. As a renowned podcast host and guest, he shares his wealth of knowledge and expertise with ambitious audiences across the world. His ability to articulate complex ideas in accessible and engaging manners has made him a sought-after voice in the industry. Today, he will share his journey, the principles of effective personal branding, and actionable advice on how to leverage your unique qualities to achieve fame and influence. Whether you're looking to build a personal brand, enhance your business strategies, or simply gain inspiration from a seasoned entrepreneur, this episode is going to be packed with valuable insight. So please put your hands together, warm up those earlobes, because we have Isaac Mashman on the podcast. Isaac, thank you so much for being here.
Phil, man, honored. And man, I must have sent you the wrong media kit. Mashman Ventures is a thing of the past. Maybe
oh my God.
My mouth. No, it's Mashman Consulting Group. Got to disclose that ahead of time. I dissolved Mashman Ventures a couple months ago now and launched a brand new venture out of Little Rock, Arkansas, Mashman Consulting Group. So similar vision, but it's a consulting firm.
I love it. I love it. Well, it must have been just before you consolidated when you signed.
Yeah,
that's probably the reason. But doesn't matter. You're here now. Mashable Consulting. It's going to be great. I'm going to love it. I want to learn a bit about why you decided to consolidate, change it, shut down. But we're going to start with the first question I always ask. Why did you get into the world of entrepreneurship? What was it that sparked the decision to shoo off corporate life or the traditional path and go and create your own path?
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose a good explanation to that would be going and taking you back to how I was raised and my upbringing. So I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida, single parent household, didn't meet my biological father and have a relationship with him until I was already an adult. And it was very, I would say, lower end middle class, upper end poverty line. My mom worked, fast food jobs. She was way overqualified for, in my opinion, and just looking at the fact sheet, way overqualified. But growing up, I was raised with that idea of go to school, get good grades, go to college. And I did exactly that in terms of I was a straight A student. I'm not one of those DRF entrepreneurs like Gary Vee. No, like I was top 10 in my class, graduated with a 4.4 weighted GPA. But in my senior year, I'm thinking to myself, my mom went back and got her master's degree and hasn't put it to use yet. And I don't want to spend the next 2 years of my life doing a bunch of prerequisites, which I've already taken in high school, like biology and algebra. Why do I need that for business? And it's not that I couldn't learn it or that it would be difficult. It was just, why would I take 2 years out of my life to do this and go to college and get involved with a bunch of things that I probably shouldn't get involved with? And in my senior year, I saw these younger guys, and I dabbled in entrepreneurship before. I had a lawn business over a couple summers, landed a law firm as a client, worked with Boy Scout leaders to do their lawn work and stuff to afford summer camps. Like, that was okay. I wasn't opposed to that hard work. And I scoured the entire neighborhood with flyers on my bike several early Saturday mornings, just dropping off flyers. So it was cool. But at the same point, my senior year, I see these younger people that were slightly older than me, but they were involved with the industry of network marketing. And then I kind of stumbled on Gary Vaynerchuk, and then I stumbled into the entrepreneur space, and I saw this young guy. And so I created an Instagram page and started to try to do that influencer kind of perspective. And man, long story short, over the past, 6 years, it's been this journey of seeking clarity, going from business to business to business, until in 2020, when I realized that I had a knack for personal branding and I became that go-to guy. But to answer your question, I wanted the freedom and flexibility to do what I wanted and the opportunity to scale. Because when you're working a corporate job, you are pretty much limited in what you're going to make. And why would you take 20 years out of your life to get a corner office when you could be a business owner and, just buy it, or at a lease? And that's basically my perspective on, the corporate versus entrepreneurial thing. Don't get me wrong, corporate is great. I think that it offers a lot of benefits us entrepreneurs don't have. Like, what's a 401k match? I don't know. So here we go though.
I love it. I love how, like most entrepreneurs, it was the freedom to decide. And I love how you just said, why work 20 years to get a corporate office, a corner office in corporate world, when you can just go out and buy the corner office, start there and just work your way up into the bigger offices. You mentioned you started little side hustles, if you will, when you were younger, your little entrepreneurial ventures, cutting lawns and that. What was the first big client that you got when you decided to go full force into the world of personal branding and that?
Well, the first money I ever made online was in 2017 when I was still in high school, and I had a clothing line that I was launching at the beginning of the year called Success Before Rest Apparel. I still have some of the hoodies, and it was just a drop shipping method using Teespring. And I had a friend make a logo, and then I turned it into these motivational phrases, very cliche, that I look back and I cringe. But I made the first $5 sale, and I logged into the dashboard. I was like, somebody that I've never talked to just bought my stuff. That's pretty cool. But it was in 2019 when I made my first $1,000 client, which I think really set the stage for future things. And I'm still great friends with him. I consider him a mentor. He's a close personal friend of mine now today. And it was to help manage his podcast and get it up off the ground. And it was right before I was planning on going over to France for a trip. And that $1,000 came in, and I'm thinking to myself, holy hell, man, when I was working in Publix or working at, doing some barbecue joint prep in the back, I had to work, 4 weeks to make that kind of money. And now I just got paid $1,000, and it'll take me, 10 hours of my time, but this is really cool. And that breaking point, really, number one, I asked, and number two, I was like, I looked at other people, what they were charging for similar service. And for some reason, 1,000 just felt comfortable, but still it was a reach. And as soon as that closed and got the ball rolling, I was like, man, the opportunities are endless here. And, before then I was doing those small coaching gigs, $100, not coaching in terms of let me be your life coach, but social media and just helping people in minor ways. And over the time, and as time developed, I got better and better with what my offering was and what I wanted to do. And eventually I realized I didn't want to do any done for you services. I absolutely abhor that. So hence I'm in the consulting world.
I like that. And the reason you dislike the done for you services, because it takes more time away from you, right? And your overhead, because you have to, if you don't do it, you have to hire someone to do it for you. And that means less income coming in. When did you hire your first person to help?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. No. It was just to free up your time was the finish of the question. But when was the first time you hired someone?
Well, in Mashman Ventures, when I was first building the team out, I wanted to make sure that I did it in a way that would reduce overhead for me. So rather than hiring for, hey, this is $1,000 every single month paying you, it was commission based off of clients that were coming in based off a need. So it was effectively white label, which is a really easy overhead and introduction into the world of business. If you want to expand your team, bring on independent contractors, align their success with your own success, and have them work on commission basis. while offering them training and whatever service you might be providing, so they get the benefit of, hey, if you need help with your personal brand, you could come to me and I can help you, free of charge. And what I need you to do is offer your services on a commission basis to people that I bring you. Then I brought on my chief consultant, who's actually coming on board as the COO for Mashman Consulting Group in the next couple of months, Eric Chow, as a consultant. And I took some of the best aspects of network marketing and the terms of building not a hierarchical structure based off of recruitment, but based off of performance. And so I brought him on, I trained him over the span of a summer, and then I had him go out and close his own clients of the firm. And so as he was working with his own business owners and his own clientele, the firm would get a cut of that. And then he was also making much more money than he would possibly be able to make when he was tutoring or, when he was first getting started. And so it was really a huge leap of faith, but it was something that, if I'm thinking about my long-term vision here, having 500 consultants and going from a corner office to eventually owning an entire floor, like that's what it's required. And, you don't have to necessarily hire somebody on a recurring basis to save yourself time. You could hire somebody just to edit your videos using Fiverr, or somebody in your network. You could hire somebody, for a couple $100 to help you with your taxes. That's a form of delegation, right? That needs to be done.
It's very true. I love that, that even pointing out that someone doing your taxes is another form of delegation, because most people don't think of it as a form of delegation. And it works for, it works for if you're an entrepreneur or not, because if you had someone in your taxes, you're delegating a task that you're not either able to do, you're not wise enough to do, or it's not worth your time to learn all the intricacies of how to, save you the money in the taxes. Why was it personal branding? What was it about personal branding that called to you, that called to your core?
It was, I didn't want to do something that everybody else was doing. And that's really the main answer here, because in 2020, I saw that every social media agency, the Tai Lopez's, right, the courses, the SMMA bros, they were all focusing on the business. What about the business owner, right? And I viewed that as this blue ocean market opportunity to move in, because there were other people in the personal branding space, but it was very limited in the sense of, a lot of times you work with a personal brand coach or consultant, they'll only focus on social media, and they won't factor in the macro approach of, let's talk about your book, your podcast, your public speaking, your Google presence, and your social media, and your in-person relationships, and your in-person opportunities, and how you can leverage your personal brand to grow your business, and why you're even growing it in the first place. And so rather than taking this very short-sighted approach, I wanted to work with people on a bunch of different spectrums. And it's also a lot of fun, because I'm not just working with doctors or dentists. I'm working with business owners, podcasters, authors, entertainers, executives. And eventually I would like to get into a little bit of that corporate white collar traditional thing, to where I could work with an executive of Coca-Cola or Stevens Inc., like the building that I have, in the background. This is Regions, but Stevens is right there. And being able to say, hey, this is how you as a corporate or a corporate executive can help shape the image of your company in a positive manner and grow sales, and also get benefits of your own, your own engagements, your own things that are outside of your career.
I love that. And I want to ask, since you're in the personal branding space and you've been an entrepreneur for a while, have you noticed a change in the consumer's approach, them wanting to be less, see this, because we both grew up with the big corporate overlords, if you will, with their faceless, we don't know who they are. And then you started getting like the Elon Musks and the Bill Gates and those people. Do you find consumers are more loyal, if you will? I don't want to really say loyal, because loyalty today is changing, but do you find that consumers feel more connected to a brand when there is this personal face to it?
Absolutely. And if you're talking about brand loyalty, it's not like the 50s or 60s where grandparents used the same kind of toothpaste until the day they died, or they drank the same Folgers cup of coffee or Maxwell House coffee until the day they died. We don't have that brand loyalty today. And a couple, if we think about those early days, even I've read articles from like Napoleon Hill or Edward Bernays in Propaganda, and, they get hit with 500 marketing messages a day. Well, now it's more like 5,000, right? And you think about that, influx of information, and your brain is shifting through and making all these different decisions. And just the other day, I saw a car in front of me, and it was a truck, a small business here, and the license plate was G Garage, right? Great Garages. And the other day when we were driving, my fiance said, "Hey, isn't that from the truck?" right? The license plate was G Garages. Like, isn't that the same company? I was like, absolutely. Like, that's such a simple form of branding, you know, a simple form of marketing. And thinking about the lack of brand loyalty today, I believe that companies need to really put a face to the brand so there can be an emotional connection, because the brands struggle to have that emotional tie. And you think about why somebody would want to hire a CEO that is well known in a certain avenue. I'm thinking about the Chipotle CEO, right, who was recently poached. And as soon as he was poached, the stock price shot up. And why is that? Because of that person's personal brand. They knew that this CEO would be able to do something exceptional for the company. Hence, the market views it in a favorable sense and increases the valuation of the company. And so people are searching on a deep level to connect deeper than just okay, this is, let's say, Trader Joe's, but now imagine the Trader Joe's CEO comes on and talks about how he worked from being a bag clerk to, you know, becoming that CEO, or sharing stories. Like, storytelling is such an effective way to establish long-term relationships rather than short-form sales.
I love that. I kind of want to touch on, since you brought up storytelling, which is something very important, because we are a society of storytellers, right? From the early days around the campfire when we're Neanderthals, if you will, sharing the history, all the way to today, telling stories about our past. And that, how can a business owner, let's say they're unable to afford your services right away, how can they start to bring in aspects of storytelling to tell their brand story or their personal branding?
Well, you do not have to have any credibility or authority or expertise to build your personal brand. This is huge. Go back and re-listen to that. You do not need credibility, authority, or expertise to build out your personal brand. You don't. You have been building your personal brand from the moment you were born. You went through school, you were the class clown, you were the teacher's pet. You went to college, you had your group of friends, you were the frat bro, or you were the student who was in the library nonstop. You go into your career, you build those relationships, you get hired based off your personal brand. Your resume is effectively your personal brand speaking for you on a piece of paper, albeit very impersonal. And so people are really wanting to connect with individuals. I saw a post the other day from a realtor, and she's like, how much I made in, you know, so far as a realtor in 2024. She's like 23 years old. She's like, January, 10,000, February, 0, March, 8,000. And then she's like, April, 0, right? And so she showed that, and I went to the comment section. It was the most wholesome comment section I've ever seen, because it was like, thank you so much for being transparent. She's not going and marketing herself as I am the number one realtor. She's saying that I am starting out in real estate, and this is what I'm making. These are the highs, these are the lows. People like that. Now, you could argue and say that's authentic, right? You're really just showcasing yourself without having to fabricate some lie. And so whether or not you're starting out, you could showcase, hey, day 1 of launching a podcast, day 2 of launching a podcast, day 3 of launching a business. And you could take people along for that ride, because there were times, Phil, where when I was starting out and I didn't have a firm business that I was committing to, I jumped from business to business to business over the span of a couple of years, trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to build. And it didn't matter what business I was building. People were still supporting me because they were supporting Isaac. You're supporting me. And so now, as going into my quote executive era, whatever you want to call it, right? This is like a new phase. People have really latched on, and they're like, wow, I've seen him go from going and sleeping on the floor in California to now getting an office, or to doing these engagements, or to launching a book and doing these. People want to support you. And, you know, I had a message earlier today from somebody in sales, and he's going to become a client of mine. And I was like, when was the last time you put out a call to action and you shared a story? Because people are wanting to work with you. They just don't know how. They don't know how to get started. And so whether you're starting out as an entrepreneur or making a career change, or wanting to launch a podcast or write a book, start putting yourself out there and creating content, whether that be filming a 30-second short vertical video and using some simple software to edit it, put it out there, showcase a little bit of your story and your journey, your struggles, and people will begin to watch you and over time become more familiar with you. And that's the law of familiarity. Eventually they'll support you.
I love that. And I love how you're saying it doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to show that you're starting, because everybody has to know, because everybody, I know from a podcasting point of view, because we both are in this podcasting, and I want to touch upon your future podcast that you alluded to, that you're launching, that everybody needs to be perfect. You know, they need to have the $100 camera, the $3,000 microphone, and have to be like the Joe Rogans or, you know, the Diary of a CEO when they're starting, when you can just literally start. Like I started just on Zoom and it was just audio based, and now we have the video coming out with it and we look a little nicer now. But yeah, I love how you're saying, like, just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to show your start. And you, like the real estate person, some months you're going to be good, some months you're going to be bad, but people are going to they're going to fall in love with you and want to be supportive of you. And it's very true. There's a realtor friend of mine that I'm like, that when I buy my house, I'm going to them because I followed their journey from starting as a stand-up comic to being a realtor, and I want to support that. And that's how you build that brand loyalty. I love it. And I just realizing it connects in my head. I want to get maybe before we jump into your podcast, a bit of a personal reflection on your journey so far as a businessman, author, podcast host, now as an executive, if you will. Has there been any pivotal moments or challenges that have significantly shaped your approach to the personal branding business?
I would say finding the business model is a very big one. And I feel like this is a discussion we should talk about because my business model went through a lot of different iterations. And having a service such as consulting, you can charge in a variety of ways. You can charge by the hour, you can charge by retainer, you could charge per session, right? And so I've tried all three. I tried the charge per hour, but then you're basically still working for the clock. What's the point? You know, it's a measurement there. And then it creates the concern of, oh, is he withholding information to charge another session, right? The second is retainer, but then you have the client's commitment. So if you are giving somebody a list of things to do, homework, for example, and they don't get it done, but you have another session scheduled, are they really getting the maximum value if they're not fulfilling what they need to do? No. And then plus you have issues when it comes to client expectations and managing that in an ethical way. That is one of the biggest things, really setting the expectation for the clients. And I had a situation 2 years ago with a client, and he made my life complete hell because he paid for an entire year worth of service, sent $5,000 on Christmas Day, and then 2 months later wanted a full refund practically. And I was like, what in the world? You have not even recorded one video talking about the difference between a warranty and a special warranty deed, which is the easiest thing you could discuss on real estate. And you haven't even done that. And you're thinking that you can go ahead and get featured on Forbes. How can I represent you if you're not representing yourself? And he's like, I want an $8,000 thing. And then I was like, at that moment, I'm never doing retainers again. Absolutely no, absolutely not. So I will charge per session. If they could purchase multiple sessions in advance, that's perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. But that was one of the biggest things when it came to ironing out my services and what I was offering. And then when it comes to consulting a client and working with them one-on-one, making it clear that I'm not going to hold their hand every step of the way and be there while they go in and log into the dashboard or log into their social media. I can be that personable if you need me to, but I am going to set you up with everything you need to where you can get these results yourself. And you could view me as that, I suppose, that spotter in the gym that can lift you up and lift that weight and make sure that you're doing things in a proper form so you're not messing up your back in a deadlift. Like, that is my job as a consultant and anybody else who's working for MCG. And those were some of the biggest, most pivotal moments in terms of getting the structure for what I was offering. And then I've also seen some clients wanting to, go viral and not even creating content, or wanting to go viral and not invest in editing, right? Like, or not invest in just those small little things that, just like you said a couple minutes ago, you realize that all of these things are interlooped and interwoven. That really is your personal brand at the end of the day, from your podcast, from your book, to your business, to your interests, right? If we split the word personal brand in two, you have personal here and brand here. The personal side is oftentimes overlooked. People talk about, hey, how are you doing? Oh, my job's stressing me out. They're not even talking about how they're doing. They're talking about their career. When people want to talk about you.
Very true. And it just clicked in my head that like 90% of the conversations, when you say how you're doing, they always come up their career, their business, their job, and not how they're doing. They could be doing perfectly fine, but because of their job overwhelming them, and they create the identity that is their job, or their career, they lose out who they are. And that's a huge factor that we need to fix in this society. I'm wondering, with your podcast, first of all, what's your podcast like going to be named? I want to get into the nuance, the neon,
Let's go.
niche of your podcast. So what made you want to redo a podcast, relaunch another podcast after you had a successful one already?
Well, I had Chase the Vision with Isaac Mashman, which I launched when I was still in that cliche hustle bro phase, right?
Mhm.
I can honestly look back on that and cringe, but it progressively improved as I went and recorded more episodes. The first 30 were different from the last 30, and that was great. And podcasting is a tool that allows you to connect, number one, with guests and people who might be out of reach, because now you're offering them a platform and a stage to speak, and that boosts your own credibility. Then it also offers you an opportunity to talk about subjects that can boost your individual credibility, such as, hey, let me talk about personal branding on this episode, or public relations, or let me share a story. And so it's a very personable way to connect with your audience. And then you could take that audio and that video and promote it for social media content and break that down. It's great from a visibility standpoint in Google. The SEO is very strong. You could take those transcripts. AI tools are making transcripts really easy to get now rather than logging the words yourself. Take those transcripts, turn them into long form blog posts. Great. So you have like 3 or 4 different ways of using podcasting right there just within the past 60 seconds. And I stopped recording episodes for Chase the Vision in June of 2022 after crossing 100 episodes because I felt like it was cliche. And that was when I entered into this stage in my own life where I'm really figuring out what's next for me. And how can I go from being that entrepreneur online to, no, I am business owner, consultant, executive, public figure, next level, next everything. And it took me a little bit of time to discover what that would be. And so I'm really excited to announce that before the end of this year, I'm launching my new show, Call It Excessive, with Isaac Mashman. And this is almost a play off of my record label that I was building at one point called Excess Records. And I just stopped doing that venture after I left California, obviously, and that's what led into Mashman Ventures. But the idea of the show is talking with people who had to do something that others would call excessive to achieve success. And not just in the business space, but in the celebrity space and the artist and music space. Also in the business space, yes, of course, talking about, hey, what were the risks? What were the leaps of faith? What were the challenges? What were the things that you did that people around you were like, man, that's so excessive. Do you really need to do that? Do you really need to work that hard? Do you really need to, post all of that content? Just those different things. Do you really need to be that aggressive with your lifestyle? And having the conversation around the 2 masks, right? The cover art of the show is going to have 3 faces. I'm going to be in the front, and then I have a photo of me wearing a mask, and then I have a photo of me smoking a cigar on the other, because we have these different masks that we showcase of like, hey, this is the mask I want you to see versus this is me, and this is what I'm building, and kind of stepping into that era, stepping into that aura, so to speak. And so I'm really excited for the show, and I'm also going to be doing short monologues where I share more personal stories and using it as a way to showcase that entertaining side of me that isn't really easy to reflect all the time on social media, because you create the content with the purpose of educating and motivating. But what about the person, man? The interests, the things that make me me.
Love that. I'm curious, because your podcast is going to be on what people do to the excess to get to where they are. What's something that you or someone has said to you that it's excessive that you did to get to the level you are today, to be in that next stage of your career as an entrepreneur into becoming the business owner executive?
Oh man, willing to do the small things that people wouldn't be willing to do. I can think of several of those off the top of my head, from leaving a business card in a Barnes and Noble in Los Angeles. I left my business cards in Gary Vaynerchuk's book and Grant Cardone and everybody else. And somebody bought a book a couple weeks later. I got a message on Instagram saying, hey, I bought your book and I found your card, right? Pretty cool. And those different minor tasks from, I'm thinking about when you fill out a profile on social media, a lot of times you will leave a space or a period or a comma or something where it shouldn't be. And you have to be very detail oriented when building out your personal brand and be willing to make it look polished and perfect. You won't have it automatically. Like I don't expect anybody listening here to have like the perfect marketing message, but being willing to take those extra steps to polish things in time, that in and of itself could be considered excessive. Or wearing your own merchandise and never wearing another person's brand, right? That's big. You could say that's excessive. Hey, like this shirt right here might have a little logo on it, but I'm covering it up for the interview, right? And when I get my own hoodies made for MCG, I'm not going to be wearing Nike hoodies or Reebok hoodies. I'm going to be wearing MCG hoodies everywhere I go. It doesn't matter if I'm going out in public for a quick dinner. It doesn't matter if I'm going to the office. I'm going to be wearing my own merchandise. That could be excessive. But you have to get in this mindset of, hey, I am a business owner. I'm a walking, talking billboard, and my personal brand is a promoter that's working for me 24/7, even if I'm sleeping. And to the average person who's not in that mindset of creation, but consumerism, would view everything that I just mentioned as that is excessive, that's over the top. It's kind of like the things online of like going and doing a cold plunge. Do you really need to do a cold plunge? And we shouldn't make fun of that because those are things that work.
I love that. I love how we are the walking billboards for a business. We may not be able to shell out $10,000 to have a billboard advertising center in the middle of Times Square, but wearing a hoodie that says your brand on it with a little QR code or something that someone can snap a picture of and find out more about you, that's going to hit 1,000 more people than that billboard in New York, in Times Square. I want to talk about the future. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Because you've already had a crazy route already. Where do you see yourself going in 10 years? We snap our fingers, 10 years in the future. What is the consulting group? Are you on to your next venture? Are you now head of Pepsi? What are you doing?
Everything that I'm doing for clients is we help emerging and established public figures optimize and scale their personal brands. Optimize is things we can improve, cracks we can fill, things that you might not have thought about, improving your distribution, improving your strategy. I'm falling underneath the second category of who I'm serving, scaling. And so the next 10 years will be 100% about scaling. That means speaking on larger stages, speaking on more stages, accelerating my personal brand in front of millions of people across social media, millions of streams on podcasts, as well as really showcasing and building myself as that credible public figure. I've had glimpses of this over the past year I've had these aha moments like, man, I'm getting emails every single day to invest in companies or to, work with people. And these are individuals that are taking time out of their days, finding my information and sending me an email. I cannot overlook that. And so it's really going to be scaling. And you ask in terms of, am I still building MCG or am I the head of Pepsi? Mashman Consulting Group will have 500 consultants by 2035. They will be people that will be personally trained by me and my team. They will be working for the firm and going out and helping other business owners, such as yourself or anybody listening, on varying levels. Not going to necessarily have to only work with high-level executives, but making it accessible, whether it's $500 or $750 to start, and just helping people get their personal brands out there. So building MCG into this empire, 9 figures, highly successful. I can take that capital, invest in commercial real estate, my own real estate, do some venture capital, angel capital, all that good stuff, right? So having that vehicle towards other investments and then scaling my own personal brand, my own life, and having the family and having the house on 100 acres of property. That's really the next 10 years and striving, my purpose in life is to live up to my potential. And that will be what that next decade encapsulates. So by the time I'm 35, things will be really where I want to be. I don't think that there's any reason why I won't be able to get there.
I love that. And speaking of reaching your potential, that takes a lot of investing in yourself. What are some of the things that you do to invest in yourself, to bring yourself to being able to reach those goals that you have, those very high goals that you have for your personal brand in that?
Mm-hmm. Reverse engineer the successes. And this is huge. So for example, if you want to get into shape, you reverse engineer the things that you're doing that will not be conducive to, losing weight or getting into better shape. So one of the big things is not just doing a workout, but actually pushing myself in that workout. So I don't just want to go on a hike. I want to wear a weighted vest, right? And these are things also from a mindset point of view that help me feel even better. By the time I get home, I'm like, man, I compare when I just go for a hike in the local park or whatever, 2.5 miles, and I come home, I'm like, all right, that was cool. Versus I come home after wearing the 40-pound weighted vest for that 2.5, mile hike with elevation. I'm like, man, I'm exhausted, but I take my vest off and I'm like, oh, I feel light. This is good. I feel good. Those different things that can make it a little bit more challenging. Or when it comes to consuming information, this is something I love doing, is listening to podcasts on 1.3 or 1.5x speed while I'm working out. So I'm able to do multiple things at once. Earlier I'm putting together my office. I have the Ed Milet show going on my Amazon, and I'm able to consume information while I'm doing a task that's productive. And so doing more with less effort. Again, delegation, in a sense, I'm delegating tasks in my own life in order to, fulfill those certain areas, because I recognize I will never be able to live up to my potential. That's a fool's game to think that you will ever live up to it. And there are multiple levels of it. I believe that there are, about 6 main areas: fiscal, finances, interpersonal, intrapersonal, emotional, spiritual, and physical potentials. And every task you do is going to contribute to one of those categories. And similarly, thinking from reputation management standpoint, every task that you're doing online, every relationship, every conversation, everything you're doing is either positively contributing to your reputation or your personal brand, or it's harming it. And so it's the same thing with like the things that you're consuming on a daily basis.
I like that. What book are you reading right now regarding business that you think would be a great addition to the libraries of entrepreneurs or pre-entrepreneurs right now?
There's a book called The Empire of Business by Andrew Carnegie, and it's actually not a book in the traditional sense. I had the luxury of finding and getting into a bidding war on eBay for this set that I got, but it's a collection of his essays that were compiled into a book that were published a couple years prior to his death. And it's fascinating because he breaks down how the world was back in the 1900s when he was building his empire, right? But a lot of the things that he discusses also apply today. So he talks about how we always put our eggs in multiple baskets, and Andrew Carnegie said you should put all your eggs in one basket and watch that damn basket. It's crazy. That's against almost everything people talk about now. People are like, oh, diversify your income streams. And he's like, focus all on one. And then he talks about how the market back then it was cheaper to buy American products and more expensive to buy imported products. And we flipped over the past 100 years. And he talks about how to align your business, your business employees with the corporation, such as doing stock shares. He's talking about this 100 plus years ago. It's such a wonderful book. And the other book is, and this would get me some flack depending on who's listening, is The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. This is a really interesting book, and not many people are willing to admit, yeah, I'm openly reading Machiavelli's work. But if you take a step back and you don't think of from the standpoint of some sociopath narcissist, a lot of what he talks about also applies in business in a positive light. So for example, we talked about hiring earlier. He talks about how the prince who brings advisors in, he says that you never want people to just openly give you advice. Think about when somebody tells you, hey, you need to do this. And you're like, I didn't ask you for your opinion. What, dude, like screw off. Versus hey, I really appreciate your opinion. Can you give me your advice? You respect that better. But he says that when hiring, I say hiring in the sense, but when you're finding advisors for your kingdom, find people that are ambitious enough to have their own desires and their own dreams, but are closely aligning their outcomes and their successes with your own. And he says that. So when I was bringing on consultants, and when I first found Eric, I knew that Eric had this ambition to build out his own success and to retire his family and to travel and live a good life. And he's a great kid with morals and ethics. But I also knew that he was aligning his own success and his future with my success. That means that he was going to be able to build with me. And I wouldn't have to worry about him backstabbing me and going down the path of, I'm so ambitious and I have my own journey, my own path that I'm pursuing, that I'm not aligned with him. So I'll be from I suppose I'm talking about from a place of abuse versus a place of let's build and, locking arms in partnership. And so The Prince by Machiavelli, if you analyze all the chapters and really study it, there are different things that you can apply in your own business and your own life that are really, really solid.
I have to agree with the book of The Prince, because I've read it and I know it's been abused into being this narcissistic, sociopathic type thing, but it really was more of a letter of caution to future empires to learn how to properly protect yourself from the failings that most empires face. And it's a wonderful book.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and I actually had the pleasure of getting a special illustrated edition from Goodwill for $1.50. I was like, wow, good find, man. Do not sleep on Goodwill. If you're starting out in business, there's no shame. I'm never going to be that entrepreneur that's like, there's shame in buying from a thrift. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Go on Sunday, get the dollar days, you'll get some good finds, right? But one of the things that he says in there too, it's kind of the same thing, I suppose, in religion, right? You take one verse out of out of context, and you can make one religion seem like it's a complete warmongering religion when you miss the context before the historical context that is involved. And in The Prince, he openly says that I discourage being just blanketly evil. And he shares stories of, for example, somebody had his general go and basically kill all of the offenders. And then he put all of the blame on the general and had the people kill the general. And the prince was completely absolved of blame because there was a scapegoat. And he says, I'm sharing the story, but that doesn't mean I agree with it. Context matters.
Yeah. Oh my God. We are coming to the end, which I hate because I
It's been
think
great.
it has. It's been, I'm really thoroughly looking forward to rereading the transcript of this and just picking out all the golden nuggets that I missed throughout this whole episode. But I have your 10-year-old self here. Now, I asked this question because I have a nephew who's 6 and I want to become the cool uncle and hand him this book of knowledge from amazing entrepreneurs like yourself. I have your 10-year-old self here. What's one piece of advice you would love to hand back to your 10-year-old self?
I love and hate questions like these. And I purposely told you not to share these questions with me because I love being put on the spot like this. And I would tell him to do exactly what he ended up doing. And I know that it might be the easy way out here, but there are a lot of things that I could have done better when I was a kid. And, single parent household, my mom remarried. I hate my stepdad. That's never changed. I don't think that'll ever change, frankly. And I would push him purposely when I was younger, and I just couldn't stand him. And I could have saved a lot of stress growing up if I didn't, and if I just listened and I rolled over. And I would tell him to do exactly what his gut is telling him to do. And that intuition that I developed over time for understanding people, for understanding myself, I would tell him to keep doing that.
I love it. Keep going. Trust your intuition. Trust your gut because it'll help you get there, even if it puts you at odds with people. I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. Intuition is so big to develop, and most people overlook that. It's like if your gut is telling you something, it's probably telling you for a reason. Intuition is instinctual, and so much as it is being able to understand human psyche and understand situations as they come. I mean, think about from a sales standpoint, your intuition tells you when you can make the close or when you shouldn't. Right? It's like, my intuition's telling me that this person is primed and ready to work with me versus let me provide more context, more information, and then that increases my chances of getting that close and offering them something they really need.
I love it. Isaac, I'm going to jump off the stage here. I want you to talk to my audience. Tell them where they can connect with you, how they can possibly become a client of your consultant firm or your empire in the making as it is. So the floor, sir, is yours.
Well, Phil, thank you. I just want to take a second to say thank you to Phil Better for inviting me on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Huge shout out to everybody listening as well. The number one thing that I would leave you with would be you do not have to be some guru or, ultra successful person to build out your personal brand. And one of the big things and reasons why people do not start is they don't know where to start and they don't know why they should start. And so the first step would be creating content online, super easy. You could talk about your career, talk about your story, talk about your progress. The second thing that I would tell you is that your personal brand is a way for you to make money, drive attention towards a cause, or because you very simply want to build out your personal brand. That's why you want to do it. If you already have one, you might as well consciously leverage it. Now, you can find me everywhere online. Just go to Google, type in Isaac Mashman. You could go to Instagram or Facebook and connect with me, or go to my website, isaacmashman.com. And to work with me personally, you could go to mashmancg.com. And I have this really cool AI chatbot that we've been building called KPI, and it'll lead you into the next steps.
Excellent. Isaac, thank you again for an incredible episode. And I'm glad we were able to get this recorded before the next year so that I have a step up from my future self. Again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise, Phil, and I'm excited for the next conversation.
To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below. I'll make sure you have all the links to connect with Isaac there and try out his chat bot. I thank you so much for listening and so much for tuning in. And as always, remember to invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.